Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordyn and welcome to today's video, which as always, I'm very excited for. Today I am sharing my thoughts on 4 new release queer romances that I read last month in June. June is of course Pride Month and I was really excited to load up on the queer romances. These are all new releases, as I mentioned, that were released in June. I had access to them through NetGalley. Of course, ideally I would have done this as an ARC vlog, shared my thoughts as I was reading the books, and even more ideally put this video out before they were released. However, life is lifing. This is the next best thing. I'm going to share my thoughts about these books that are now already out, so if any of them sound interesting to you, you can already go check them out. And also, obviously, it is now July. We are no longer in Pride Month, but there's never a bad time of year to read queer romances and be in support of Pride, even if it's not officially Pride Month. So with that, let's get into the books, and I think I will share my thoughts on them in reverse order of my ratings. So I'm gonna start with my least favorite of the 4 and build up to my favorite of the 4 books, and of course let you know the synopsis of each of them, what my thoughts were, and who I would recommend each of them to. So the first book I'm going to start with is called Backhanded Compliments by Katie Chandler. This is a rivals to lovers tennis-based queer romance with a little bit of a magical element speculative twist to it. This follows 2 main characters named Juliet and Luca. They are both elite female tennis athletes, and at the start of this book they have a very clear rivalry. They obviously know of who each other are because they both have come up in the sport of tennis together, and the book kicks off with them facing off head-to-head in a tennis match. And in this tennis match, we get to know their rivalry a little bit, but also the added element to their competitive rivalry, which is that in this world, most people have like a tattoo or a mark that naturally appears on their wrist that says the name of their soulmate. They're called soul marks. And to add to these 2 characters' dynamics, they have each other's names on their wrists. And in this book, both of these characters try to be secretive with their soul marks. It's not public information, even though they are public figures. They try to keep them hidden as much as they can, but of course, speculation starts to come out about whose names each of their soul marks are. And from there goes the story. We basically read about these 2 characters navigating their competitive rivalry while also coming to terms with the fact that they are soulmates. And what you get is kind of a magical version of rivals to lovers sports romance. And it was very interesting to read. This is definitely outside of my comfort zone. I'm not someone who reads a lot of books with speculative or magical elements to them. It's just not my favorite, but I was willing to give this one a chance, give it the benefit of the doubt. However, as I was reading this book, the soul mark situation just confused me because logically, you know who your soulmate is. I didn't really understand the kind of push and pull that these characters had with each other because they knew they were soulmates, and yet they weren't really willing to accept it, but they also weren't willing to completely reject it. So that was kind of strange. It also really took out all of the suspense, even though I know in romance books, like, you know the couple is going to end up together. That is a staple of the genre. But it just more so made me annoyed with the middle portion of the book, the will they, won't they, any kind of angst or build-up created. I don't know, it just took out any intrigue for me. I could also get into my personal beliefs about whether soulmates exist and how that probably affected this book, because it definitely removed the element of free will and choice to some extent. So yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I gave it 2 stars. I definitely can see this having an audience, and I've seen reviews of people loving this book and loving that unique speculative element to it. So if that sounds like something you're drawn to and like something you would enjoy, I would definitely recommend giving it a try, because it's not something I've read before in a romance book. But for me personally and my tastes, it didn't really work. I did like the tennis elements of it, and I do like a sports romance in general, but this one was not a winner for me, so I rated it 2 stars. Okay, the next book I will talk about is Amelia If Only by Becky Albertalli. I think I've read a couple of books by Becky Albertalli. She's definitely a well-known author in the young adult book space, and this is her latest queer romance following our main character Amelia, who is a young adult teenage girl who is starting to come to terms with the fact that she may have a crush on her best friend Natalie. This book gives off major Gen Z vibes because it also follows the plot of Amelia and Natalie and their small group of friends going on this small road trip to go see an in-person event hosted by one of their favorite internet celebrities, YouTube personality people. So in typical young adult contemporary fashion, this book covers a bit more than just the romance. It is a bit of a coming of age story, and it covers additional topics like internet fandom, parasocial relationships, and I did enjoy reading those parts of the book. It made me feel a little old with some of the Gen Z talk and like internet talk, which I mean, a little bit familiar with. Obviously, I am part of the internet content creator population, but I am not a Gen Z individual. So I feel like some of the pop culture references probably went over my head, or I was just, I don't know, internally, I don't know, cringing, or just feeling like, this isn't really my demographic. But still, I think it's worthwhile to have books like this with that included. I am sure all kinds of readers of this book will feel seen and understood, and like Amelia or one of her friends could represent you and your life. And like I said, the conversations about parasocial relationships, especially in the weird internet space where internet celebrities are a little bit more approachable, or seemingly so, than your typical like Hollywood celebrity, especially when it's someone near your age. I thought it handled those discussions well, and I really appreciated those parts of the book. The romance element was cute. Again, it was more about like coming to terms with a crush and what do you do when that's a friend, and balancing that awkward situation. That's not something that I personally relate to at this point in my life, but it was cute. I didn't mind it. And so overall, I gave this book 3 stars. And again, I would specifically recommend it to anyone who thinks those specific topics sound interesting to them, especially if you already know you enjoy young adult romances specifically. Okay, the next book I will talk about is Ready to Score by Jody Slaughter. This is an adult queer romance about 2 women who live in the same, I think it's North Carolina town. They are both teachers at the same school, and they are both trying to become football coaches for their school's boys varsity football team. And this book took me on quite a roller coaster, to be honest. At the start of this book, these 2 main characters are very antagonistic towards each other, more so in one direction, actually. One of the main characters, named Jade, is already a member of the coaching staff. She's the only woman on the coaching staff, and for some reason she is very anti this other main character, Franny, joining the coaching staff, even though it would be another woman on the staff. They obviously have a lot in common, but there's a bit of a one-sided rivalry there. But we do get quite a bit of character development, in my opinion, from the start of the book to the end of the book, as they have some revelations about not only themselves and the other person, but also their inherent biases, even as women. And I did enjoy seeing a lot of that challenged, and of course they go into the sexism that they experience from some of the male coaching staff or just other people in this town. So I liked that. I also really specifically enjoyed the football scenes in this book. It's not really a sports romance in the way that you would get from the main characters actually being the athletes. It's much more from the coaching lens and about like what they're doing for these boys beyond just helping them win. Although of course they want to win, but also they're trying to develop them into good humans. So it's a bit more than just the athletics, but I enjoyed that part of it. I also have not read any books that feature female football coaches, so I liked all of that. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I think there was just something holding me back from being like 100% on board with this couple and this relationship, probably because of some of those early confrontations they have with each other. It just felt like a lot to come back from. But overall, I was invested in this story, and I did want to read to the end to figure out how it wrapped up. So like I said, I went with 3 stars. And then last but not least, the 4th book to review here is my favorite of the bunch. It is the only male-male romance in this video, and it's called Winging It With You by Chip Pons. Chip Pons is an author I've read from before. He has one other book called You and I Rewritten, which I did enjoy and was excited for his follow-up book. And this one just had all of the ingredients to be something I was going to enjoy. This follows 2 male main characters who end up competing on a reality competition TV show together, very similar to An Amazing Race. But they are strangers pretending to be in a relationship together for the show that ended up just coincidentally being paired up because of things that happened at the very beginning of the book. And this was just so much fun. Personally, I love competition reality TV. Like, that is 95% of what I actually consume on television when I watch TV. So I love whenever that's included in a book. And these specific characters in this book, I just got so attached to. I really enjoyed both of them as individuals. I was rooting for them, not only for their success in the competition, but of course also their relationship. They've both got their individual issues that they're working through. They are both adults. They have complicated lives and things they're working through. And because they're strangers, of course, part of figuring out their relationship is not only figuring out whether they like each other, whether they want to be in a relationship, but also logistics and managing their full adult lives and getting those to intertwine is often a little bit more complicated when you are talking about adults versus young adults. So I really enjoyed that. Also, maybe I should have said this earlier, but for all of the adult romances I'm talking about in this video, there are some intimate scenes included in the book, especially in this one. I think this is probably the most graphic in terms of steamy scenes. So if that's going to bother you, then maybe proceed with caution. But I had a lot of fun reading this book. There are definitely parts that are a little bit over the top, overly cheesy, maybe a little bit unbelievable, but hey, that's reality TV sometimes, so I'm not going to knock this book for that. But I ended up rating it 4 stars. I would highly recommend it to anyone who's looking for a fun, steamy, drama-filled sort of summer romance book to inhale. This is my top recommendation. I did give it 4 stars. And again, I'm very excited to follow Chip Pons as an author going forward to see what else he comes out with, because I have really enjoyed both of his adult male queer romances that he's written so far. So those are all the books that I had to review in this video. If I have convinced you to pick any of these books up, please let me know. I would love to hear which ones sounded most interesting to you. Let me know if you have any queer romance recommendations for me. Like I said, these are the types of stories that I like to read all year round, not just in Pride Month, and I am always accepting recommendations, so I would love to hear. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else, so thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.